And then lastly, sound and music. You can start off with music. You can add a music track to your level and to your game through Kismet using new action, sound, play music track, for example on level loaded, and then in play music track over here, music track, it says the sound cue. So in the Unreal Tournament 3 directory I found some music, for example this one, a music go down ambient 1 cue, that's the cue to use, and that's it. If you now play the level on PC, it would start playing that track, and presumably that track loops as well, depending on how the cue is set up, but then you would have music. However, if you would do this on mobile now, you would have music as well, but it would be very inefficient. You can see here at the bottom it says MP3 file name. This is what mobile will try to use, and if there is nothing filled in there, it will use the original sound cue. That sound cue, however, means it would use almost uncompressed sound on mobile. The cues are not compressed, that's why there is an MP3 here. MP3 is obviously compressed sound. And the thing with mobile devices, both Android and iOS, is that it has quite big problems playing a lot of compressed sound at the same time. It can only play one compressed sound stream at the same time. So it can only play one MP3 at the same time. All the other sounds have to be uncompressed wave sounds pretty much. They're not entirely uncompressed, they are compressed in a special format, but it has a much bigger impact than MP3. In other words, you can have one MP3 track playing during the game, and everything else that happens in the game are normal wave files. And that means that the one track that's the biggest sound present in the level is usually the music. Therefore, the music should become MP3, and everything else should be normal sound cues and wave files. So we have to define the MP3 file name here. If you go to the install directory of UDK, UDK game, build, iPhone, resources, and then you have a couple of folders here. Also, for example, graphics here. This contains the icons that you can see on the iOS, on the iPad. In any case, we have to use music. And this is where you would place the MP3 file to use. You can see I have an MP3 file here. This is a music go down, etc. That's the MP3 version of this music track. So you have to place that MP3 in this directory, UDK game build iPhone resource, etc. And then you copy the name of that one to play music track over here without extension. So now on PC it will use a sound cue, on mobile it will use the MP3, which is much more efficient memory wise and play wise. That same problem is present with normal sounds in the level as well. What we have in the level here is every pool of water has an ambient sound simple assigned. We have 6 of those. Then we have the fire making a sound, and we have a general ambient sound here in the middle of the level. If you look at the radio of those, then you can see it looks like this. There's a lot of overlapping. If you were to stand here, for example, you would hear 3 different sounds at the same time. This one, plus the general one over there. And that's very slow. Again, mobile is quite bad with playing a lot of sounds simultaneously at the same time. So what you have to do is make sure that there's as few sounds as possible playing at the same time, and that the sounds that are playing are preferably not looping, but short one-time only sounds. And that's not the case with these water pools here, nor with the ambient sound. So delete the ambient sound. If you really want ambient sounds in your level, you should use a music track that has the ambient sounds mixed through, for example. Or simply have no music track, just have an ambient track instead. But that should be done through Kismet, and that should be done as an MP3. So I'm going to delete the general ambient sound here in the ceiling of the room. And then I'm going to select the 6 water pool sounds, and I will reduce the radii of all of those to something smaller. What we're after is making sure they don't overlap, so you can never hear two sounds at the same time. You can hear one pool of water, but then the sound would fade out because you walk away, and then you hear the next, fade out, fade in, fade out. So I'm gonna do like this, so it never overlaps, so you can never hear too many sounds at the same time. And I increase the minimum radius a bit, otherwise the sound might be too silent. So this is more optimized. And the fire sound here at the end is fine. It's small enough, it doesn't overlap with anything. That's kind of what you need. Small local sounds, not too many sounds at the same time. And the sounds that you are playing should preferably be simple and short. You can see here in a mechanical, we have the same principle. We have no ambient sounds in level anymore. In the PC version, there were large ambient sounds through the level. We deleted all of those. All of our music is handled through MP3. And we made sure that all of the sounds that we have, for example, this one, you can see if you right click and take properties, you can see what it is. All the sounds that we have in game are mono. And they're 22,000 Hertz. So that's the formats and the settings we use. Mono, 22,000 Hertz. Stereo has a really large impact on performance as well. So we should absolutely use mono for almost everything unless it's absolutely critical to have stereo sounds. Also, we made our own system here. You can't do this in a normal UDK. But we have our own system where we have low-end sounds. So low-end devices use these files, high-end uses this. And the only real difference is that the low-end sounds, they're also mono, but they are 16,000 Hertz. So it's a bit lower in the sample rate, is a bit lower. Since you can't do this with a normal UDK, what I would advise is you simply set your standard sample rate at like 18,000, 20,000 Hertz, somewhere in between the two, mono, and stick to that. Make sure the sounds are short as well, as mentioned earlier. So for example, an explosion, it's 3 seconds for the explosion itself. Make sure that's just 3 seconds. So make sure there's no 4-second silence at the end of that sound, because that 4-second silence will still take CPU power to play it. So make sure the sounds cut off, crop the sounds to just where they have to be, as short as possible.